Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're the show that digs into sources to pull out those really key insights and facts for you. And today we're doing something a bit different. We're taking a journey into a concept that's purely fictional, drawn from imagination. Our sources are some really vivid excerpts from a speculative work. It's called The Ethereal Weave, Gaia's Regenerative Flourishing. So, yeah, just to be clear up front, this is exploring ideas from a fictional narrative. Our mission today is to unpack this, well, pretty cutting edge vision of Earth's future, one where technology and nature aren't just side by side, but they actually converge in a really profound way. We'll look at some pretty stark challenges like societal collapse scenarios, but also the ingenious solutions that come from really understanding the planet as an integrated whole. We're going to get into advanced simulations, managing global systems, and a frankly revolutionary energy idea. So what's on the agenda? First, we'll step inside the Gaia complex. It's this place running 3,000 Earth simulations. Then we'll really dig into the lessons, sometimes painful ones, learned from futures that didn't make it. And finally, we unveil the Ethereal Weave, this exciting clean energy concept that kind of embodies everything learned. It's quite a ride, from potential disaster to a really hopeful vision. Okay, so let's set the scene. Imagine walking into the core of this Gaia complex. Our source introduces us to a Dr. Elena Vasquez, and she's entering what they call the Convergence Chamber. It sounds less like a lab, more like some kind of sci-fi cathedral. Picture rows and rows of quantum processors. So they're humming, apparently, like this huge sentient digital thing. And these aren't just faster chips. They're modeling billions of variables at once. That's how they handle the complexity of, simulating Earth. Blue lights pulsing everywhere. But the real spectacle, the source says, is the chamber itself. 40 meters high, huge dome. Holographic displays are cascading down the walls like these shimmering data ribbons. Each one is a living Earth simulation. And right in the middle, suspended in light, is the crown jewel, a 3D real-time Earth. Amazing detail. You can zoom right in, see weather systems, city lights, forests, breathing.
It really is an astonishing image, isn't it? The scale, the ambition.
Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling. And it's not just a pretty picture, right? It's about modeling these dynamic, interconnected systems, the feedback loops, all unfolding.
Exactly. And the whole point is running 3,000 distinct Earth simulations, all at the same time.
3,000 possible futures.
Yeah.
Evolving side by side. It's the sheer scale of trying to model Earth's complexity.
Yeah.
To understand every ripple effect. That's what's so compelling.
Absolutely. The scale is just, astounding. Okay, so the source drops us right into a crisis. Dr. Vasquez asks ARIA, that's the AI coordinator, think superintelligent OS for the morning report. And the news ARIA gives is stark. An unusual convergence event.
Right. 437 simulations just terminated between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m.
Which is massive, because they say they'd never lost more than a dozen in a day before. Unprecedented, a huge statistical anomaly.
Definitely alarming.
So, okay, let's unpack this. What do these failed simulations actually look like? When Vasquez looks closer, what does she see?
Well, that's the chilling part. ARIA shows her what's called the cascade. The chamber dims. And suddenly she's not looking at one Earth. She's sort of floating in this galaxy of Earths. The healthy ones are glowing warm gold, alive with civilization, climate, nature, all that intricate dance. But scattered through it are these dark spheres, the failed simulations. And the description is chilling. Cracked with red fissures, like dying stars. Vasquez literally walks among them like a ghost, selecting them to see what went wrong.
Wow. Like a dying stars. So were there specific examples? What kind of failures were they seeing?
Yeah, the source gives some really potent examples. Simulation 1247, for instance. Vasquez zooms in, and it's this terrifying vision of North America, maybe around 2034. Massive coastal flooding, huge areas underwater, and the Midwest. A vast dust bowl, Texas to Canada. Cities are described as gray wounds, urban cores collapsing, ringed by these sprawling refugee settlements spreading like cancer cells. Grim stuff.
And the cause? Did they pinpoint why it collapsed so badly?
ARIA's data showed it clearly. 67% of global resources were going to immediate disaster response. Just reacting. Not enough left for the renewable transition, for proactive measures. The tipping point hit at year 12, and societal collapse followed within 18 months. A world stuck reacting, basically.
Wow. So reacting instead of preventing. That's incredibly stark. And you mentioned another failed Earth, one that collapsed different.
This other one looked good on the surface. Gleaming solar arrays everywhere, seemed like a clean energy paradise. But the human cost. Empty rural areas, desolate, and these massive urban arcologies, self-contained megacities that looked more like prisons.
Okay, so what went wrong there? They had clean energy.
Aggressive environmental policy, yes, but crucially, without enough social consideration. There was this huge disconnect between the green agenda and people's lives, their cultures, their livelihoods. Result, civil unrest, revolution by year 15. So two very different paths to failure. One by crisis overload, one by, well, poorly integrated policy, both ending badly.
Okay, so all these different failures, these dark spheres, was there a single big mistake? A common thread tying them all together? Or was it just lots of unique disasters?
That's the core realization Dr. Vasquez had. She spent hours walking among them, seeing patterns. She asked ARIA for correlation matrices, and the failed Earths clustered. Shimmering threads connected them. Red threads for resource errors, blue for social stability failures, green for environmental miscalculations.
Ah, so there were patterns.
Exactly. And here's the big aha moment. The source calls it beautiful in its terrible clarity. Every failure stemmed from the same fundamental error, treating the planet's systems as separate solvable problems instead of recognizing them as facets of a single, impossibly complex organism.
Right, not seeing the connections, trying to fix one thing without realizing it affects everything else.
Precisely. It wasn't about finding one solution. It was the lack of integration across all systems. That was the fatal flaw.
That's a huge insight. It's not just about the environment or the economy or society. It's about how they all weave together.
Okay, so these failures were dark teachers. They learned profound lessons. But how did they actually apply that? How do you go from insight to action to guide things towards flourishing?
Well, first they looked really closely at the healthy simulations, the ones glowing gold. They didn't just show efficiency. They had this different quality of light, suggesting a deeper balance. Technology and nature working together. So based on analyzing those 437 failures and seeing what worked in the successful ones, they made some key, pretty radical changes.
Okay, like what?
First, a massive shift to an integrated systems approach. No more silos, understanding that, say, climate change and social upheaval aren't separate issues. They're linked. Second, moving decisively from crisis response to anticipatory adaptation. Proactive, not reactive. Building resilience before the crisis hits.
So less firefighting, more future-proofing. Makes sense. But how did they make that concrete? What did they actually do? Good question. They saw a 23% increase in social resilience programs, directly tackling those social factors that cause collapse in some SIMs, strengthening communities, equity, local self-sufficiency. It wasn't just an afterthought.
Right, adjusting the human element that was missed before.
Exactly. And a 15% reduction in purely technological fixes. A big pivot towards hybrid biotech solutions, things that blend nature and tech. Solutions that biodegrade, integrate, almost grow into the environment.
Hybrid biotech. Interesting. And what about resources? How do they manage those differently?
This is fascinating. Resource allocation started following tidal patterns. Resources flowed where needed most, when needed most. Like the source says, like blood through a living body.
Wow, that's a powerful metaphor. Not rigid budgets, but dynamic flow.
Yeah, seeing global resources as this responsive supply chain, adapting constantly to the planet's needs. Truly dynamic.
Can you give an example? What does that look like in practice?
Yes, there's a great example in the source. Massive reforestation projects. In the successful simulations, these weren't just funded by, say, carbon markets alone. They were deeply integrated with direct employment programs, specifically retraining fossil fuel workers and others from displaced industries for this green work.
Ah, I see. So it's hitting multiple problems at once.
Precisely. Addresses climate change, helps with a just economic transition for workers, and builds community stability through meaningful jobs. All integrated. And another key change, community-preserving infrastructure. Instead of just abandoning coastal cities to sea level rise, they relocated them inland gradually over decades, meticulously preserving communities, culture.
That's a world away from those gray wounds and refugee camps you mentioned earlier. Human-centered.
Exactly. A slow, careful migration that keeps the social fabric intact.
It really makes Dr. Vasquez's work sound profound. Like she's tending a garden of potential futures, guiding resources not just to the flashiest results, but to the ones that felt alive, complex, messy, beautiful. Those 437 failures really were dark teachers, weren't they? Pointing the way by showing what not to do.
Absolutely. Which leads us perfectly to the Aetherial Weave.
Right. This is the concept developed by Gaia, one of the successful simulations. It sounds like the ultimate expression of all these integrated principles. So what is the Aetherial Weave? Why is it such a big deal in this future? I'm really curious about this one.
Okay, so the Aetherial Weave is Gaia's answer to clean energy. And its core philosophy lines up perfectly with those lessons learned. It's all about harmonizing with the planet's fundamental forces. Specifically, It harnesses Earth's natural magnetosphere.
The magnetosphere.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it embodies that anticipatory adaptation idea. It's not extracting or just meeting demand. It's working with the planet's own energy systems,
Hmm.
symbiotically.
How does it work? What are the components?
Two main parts. First, the orbital resonators. These are semi-autonomous satellites, low impact. But here's where that hybrid biotech idea really comes in. They aren't manufactured like normal satellites. They're grown.
Grown satellite.
Grown from advanced metamaterials. Engineered at the atomic level, basically, to interact precisely with natural forces. They tune in to the magnetosphere. They don't disrupt it. They gently resonate with its fluctuations, its currents, collecting ambient electromagnetic energy. The source calls it a dance, not a theft. They're like living conduits, humming in harmony with Earth's energy field.
Wow. Grown satellites dancing with the magnetosphere, drawing energy without harm. That's
Yeah.
a huge leap. Thinking like the planet. What's the ground part?
That's the terrestrial flux converters, the ground stations, but again, not noisy industrial sites. They're described as elegant structures. They either mimic natural features like rock formations, or they're nestled right into reforestation zones, part of the landscape.
Blending edge.
Totally. And they receive the energy from orbit via guided atmospheric plasma conduits. Think channels of superheated ionized air transmitting the energy invisibly, efficiently. And the crucial bit, zero emissions at the delivery point. Air stays clean, ecosystems are undisturbed, totally silent process.
So it's limitless clean energy, and its very design integrates with and even heals the environment. It reflects all those principles they learned from the failures.
Exactly right. The impact in the Gaia simulation was massive. Limitless clean energy arrives, which then lets them refine those tidal patterns of resource allocation even more precisely. And it directly feeds into that 23% increase in social resilience programs. Why? Because energy poverty basically becomes history. A major source of conflict and inequality just vanishes.
It's tackling energy, environment, social equity, all together, a positive feedback loop.
That's the beauty of it. It embodies working with the planet as that single integrated organism Vasquez realized was key, solving multiple problems inherently.
That is an amazing concept, and it's not just theoretical in one simulation.
No, that's the really compelling part. The schematics, the protocols for the Eetherial Weave, they're being shared with other healthy simulations for pretesting. Dr. Vasquez is meticulously calibrating everything for tangible, real-world implementation, guiding humanity's actual future, potentially, beyond the chamber walls, using this fiction as a blueprint.
What a journey today. From those really stark collapse scenarios, the dark teachers, all the way to something incredibly hopeful and integrated like the Ethereal Weave. It's a powerful story about learning from failure, seeing connections, and innovating with nature.
It really is. And it raises an important question for you, our listener.
Yeah, how might we, in our own lives or communities, maybe even globally, how could we apply some of these core ideas from this fictional deep dive? Things like that integrated systems approach or anticipatory adaptation. How could thinking that way shift our view of the real challenges we face now?
Where could we look for our own tidal patterns, places where resources could flow more dynamically?
Or areas where solutions could be more hybridized, blending tech and nature for a bigger, more holistic impact. Maybe think about where we might be treating problems in isolation instead of seeing them as parts of one complex system, and what opening up that view might allow. Lots to think about there. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Ethereal Weave. We hope it sparks some ideas. We'll see you next time. Welcome back to the